Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Kentucky Comeback webinar for today. We are going to give it just a second for everybody to get on and join us, but we're going to have a great conversation today, and we're really excited for all of you to hear from our wonderful panelists. So I'll give it just a little bit longer to get everybody on here, and then we'll get started. Okay, it looks like a good amount of people have signed on, so we will go ahead. My name is Jacqueline Pitts. I am the Communications Director here at the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, and I am joined today by an incredible panel of individuals here in Kentucky who have been on the front lines of recovery. And so we are going to talk to them today about that. Just a reminder, we're doing this for Kentucky Comeback, our new initiative at the Kentucky Chamber that's aimed at reducing the stigma around substance use disorder, as well as making significant and necessary changes in the criminal justice system, and just taking the steps necessary for Kentucky to get on the right track in these areas. So I want to encourage all of you to go to the website, KentuckyComeback.com, sign up for the network there, because that's how we're really going to make some change, is when we all come together to tell legislators that we want these type of changes to be made. And encourage your employers to get on there, see all the resources we have in terms of becoming a recovery-friendly work environment and all the other things we have to offer on there. You can also just text in KY Comeback to 52886. So shameless plug there, just to get Kentucky Comeback, get everybody involved. But now I'm going to go ahead and get started with our panel today. I am hearing a lot of these stories for the first time too, so I am so excited to learn from our panel today. And I am going to kick it off by letting each of them tell their personal story about addiction and anything else. And I'm going to kick it off today with Tony. So Tony, if you want to introduce yourself and tell your story, that would be wonderful.
Thanks, Jackie. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tony White. I'm a person committed to long-term recovery. And what that means is that I've been substance use free since July 8th of 2003. This opportunity to come and kind of share with you guys today is just beyond anything that I would have even thought was possible 17 years ago. But just that, you know, first off, I'm an alumni of the Healing Place. I originally got there in '02, and this is after years of being in the fellowship in Atlanta and kind of getting some time and going back out and getting time and going back out. And on January 1st of '02, my mother looked at her son, who was 155 pounds. I had not had a haircut or even shaved probably in about 6 months. And she looked down at her son, who was sitting on her couch eating her food, watching her cable TV, because my house in Snellville, Georgia, the water and the power had been off for 4 months. And she just simply looked at me and said, "You need to do something." And after a series of phone calls, I was suggested by my grant sponsor at the time to call the Healing Place, because there was no one who was going to pay for treatment for me. I did not have any insurance or any other resources. And it was Mike Triplett picked up the phone, and he said, "Hello, Healing Place." And just this weak, muttered little, "I need some help." "Well, what kind of help?" "With drugs and alcohol." "Well, come on down. We got a bed for you." Well, I explained to him that I was in Atlanta, and he said, "Well, I'll take your name and call me back when you make arrangements." And so this was the second time that this has happened, because my father in '87 had given me a one-way plane ticket to go from Evanston, Illinois, where I'm originally from, to Atlanta, where my mother was. And at that time, he told me that he loved me, but he didn't like what I was doing, and that my mother had always had custody of me, and that I needed to go to Atlanta to be with her. And I was 25 years old, and my father was talking about custody. And so, Mom gave me a one-way plane ticket to get to Louisville, and I had a duffel bag, and I got as my luggage and a garbage bag that I got on the plane with, and Steve Hanks in the Cat Band, he picked me up, and that was in January of '02. Went through the program, unwilling to be sponsored. I was scared to death, unwilling to be honest, unwilling to take any suggestions. And in August, went over on the West End and smoked some crack cocaine. And at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday night, Monday morning, when walking back into detox, and Albert I told him what had happened. He said, go on over there and sit down. About that following May, after going through again, had gotten an apartment, and was working at, golly, where was I? In the mailroom at Frost Brown Todd, and I did it again. And so that following, in August, July, it was the end of June of '03, and Reggie and his assistant at that time, Scott, they came by the apartment and said, man, you don't necessarily have to come back, but you at least need to get out of this dark apartment and get a sponsor and start doing something different. And I asked if I could come back, and they said yes. And this last time, God sent certain angels who told me the truth. One of them has recently passed away, Ernie Robinson. Ernie looked at me and he said, man, I have been working up here facilitating overnight and for years. He said, there are men who are in overnight right now who are in this program, and I'm not going to tell you who they are. But there was a certain look in their eye, and I see it in you, that the light's on, but nobody's home. He said, man, I know that you feel like you can't make it out there, but now I'm looking at you, and it seems like you don't think this is going to work. This is going to work for you either. And just that simple recognition, being told that truth. And there were many little points like that. But he made a suggestion for someone that I should ask to be my sponsor. I took it. I tried to do what that man asked me to do. He framed a relationship for me, and just worked the steps. Having been through a couple of times, in October, I was doing night step work, and at the time I asked the program director, Al, and Scott Chauncy if they thought I should go into the office, and Scott's response was, you should have been in there when we were all in there. But Al agreed, and was assistant staff. And then in June of '04, after celebrating that 1 year, it was time for me to start looking to do something. And Al Jackson came in the office and said that there was an opening over at the Beacon House, that they needed someone to facilitate over there. And he said, so if you want to throw your hat in the ring, come talk to me. And I asked if I could be considered to go over there, and started facilitating. I was the backup, one of the backups over at the Beacon House, and then a full-time position came open about a year later. And then there was Clyde Harper was at the time was a replication director at the Healing Place, and we were in the office together. And he said, "Man, they're starting this Recovery Kentucky. They need a program director out in Moorhead at the First Men's Center, and let me see, give me a resume." And I'm sitting there looking at him going, "Man, I can't do that. I don't know how," you know. But resume, interview, and moved out here in Moorhead, Kentucky in October of '07, and as an operations manager. Then about a year later, the program director moved on and had an opportunity. Did both jobs, program director and operations manager, for about 4 months, and then they gave me an opportunity to be the program director, and then during the expansion of Recovery Kentucky, the community mental health provider that I work for, they were awarded another Recovery Kentucky center in Grayson, the Genesis Recovery Kentucky Center, and said, I'd like to go out there and start that one up. And people thought I was nuts, but so yeah, we opened in 16, and I did that up until April, and I'm currently working for the Fletcher Group, and Governor Fletcher was in office and initiated Recovery Kentucky with the help of Kentucky Housing Corporation and Don Ball and of course everyone at the Healing Place, and I'm the National Outreach and Engagement Specialist, providing technical support for through a HRSA grant that we've created a rural center of excellence, and we're providing technical support to bring recovery housing and the model to rural areas, to HRSA designated rural areas. And so that's pretty much up to what it was and what I'm doing now. And again, it's a privilege to be with you all. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And it's such an honor to hear all of your stories and hear how you guys are helping people now in your new positions. So I'm going to go next to Nicole, who will tell us her story and then how she's helping people now.
Okay, hello, I'm Nicole, and I'm also a person in long-term recovery. My sobriety date, May 16th, 2010. So 10 years, working on 11, God willing. So I'm an alumni of the Women's Healing Place. How I got there was a little bit different. There was some divine intervention between, by Louisville Metro Police Department. That's how my what we call last run. But that wasn't my first time in treatment. My first round in treatment was when I was 15, and that was 1989. It's called Charter Hospital. Charter Hospital has been the Brook, Timbrook, then the Brook. It's over the last 20-something years, it's changed names, but originally in 1989, it was Charter Hospital. So struggling with substance abuse, since my teen years. So with that, full circle, things progress, in the, early 90s, late 80s. It was, the simple drink, maybe, a little partying and smoking, because I didn't know how to cope with things. I had some childhood trauma that I never was able to actually get help with. And from there, of course, when you don't get that clinical help, or you don't seek it out, and I was in treatment at 15, but at that time, personally, you have to take it seriously. As a teenager, I'm okay, right? I can just smoke and drink this thing away. But with substance abuse, it progresses. And that's exactly what it did over the years. I continued, I graduated from high school, Presentation Academy, private school, went to college, but I didn't finish college. I started college, majored in electrical engineering, but it followed me. My addiction, my substance abuse followed me, because when things got rough, what did I do? I used. So fast forward to 2000, 2009, 2010, all those activities caught up with me, and they caught up with me in a major way. I took the police on a high-speed chase. I won't go into the whole story of it. I was using, I was afraid. I was cornered by 9, 10 police officers, out of my mind. And the first thing that I could think of was get back in the car and run. Not that I hadn't done that before. I wasn't experienced, because it landed me in jail. With that, what I call divine intervention, because within that process, and I'll go ahead and say, I was looking at 25 years for that mistake. And I had a prosecutor who saw what they call a I think it's a PCI, pre-investigation paperwork. Can't remember of it, but in that paperwork, it explains your history, who you are, everything about you. So, and within reading that, while waiting, she saw that, something happened within these 3 to 4 years. You graduated from high school. She was from Louisville. She knew my private school. She knew the opportunities and things that I had been involved in. She was able to see herself in me. She pulled me in my final sentencing. She pulled me out of the courtroom and actually said, you have a problem. You need some help. She told me that as a lawyer, in law school at WKU, she struggled with an eating disorder. And she saw her eating disorder in my substance abuse, because and she said, exactly, somebody gave me a second chance, so I'm going to give you a second chance. So those that are practicing and struggling with anorexia or bulimia, there's help there, because that's a disorder as well. So she was able to see her addiction in me, and said, you know what, I want to give you a second chance and send you to the Ellen place. And against everybody, I guess the judge, that was a unprecedented situation, and that's coming from my attorney as well, because I'm like, is this it? He's like, yes. He threw his hands up. I don't have anything to do with this. There was the compassion of my prosecutor, and prosecutors are the one who put you away, right? So but she had that compassion and to give me a second chance. And I went to the Healing Place for treatment, for help. Within that process, I lived in the Healing Place and was in that program. I lived there for 24 months. I was in the program for a year. At that point, it was a year-long program. And after completing the program, I went into the peer mentor office and began to facilitate class and became the peer mentor supervisor. I guess it would be called the administrative side of things. As I was actually at the end of my 12-month stint, there was a transitional program, assistance, where Clyde Harper, Tony, you talked about Clyde Harper and Sylvia, Jay Davidson, in this 3 or 4, maybe 5 days where, what are you going to do? Because as people in recovery, we have to have a game plan. What are we going to do when all this is over? And I thought, well, I'll become a drug and alcohol counselor because that was my passion. But Clyde pointed out, one of the staff members, like, you went to school for electrical engineering. What about this? Because, at a certain time, and Jay Davison pointed out, he foresaw that recovery was going to be pretty saturated, and why throw away the tools and skills that you've already built up? And Jay Davis himself, they had actually brung some paperwork about an electrical apprenticeship to become an electrician at the local 369 here, the IBEW. Why don't you try this? And they actually gave me numbers and phone numbers. One of the phone numbers and contacts they gave me was our former state representative, Larry Clark, who is my mentor today. And one thing I remember that Jay said was, he said, you can always come back and help people. But he said, if you go outside the box and do this, your story will be that much powerful that you're showing others that, you don't have to give up skill sets and you can still help people. You don't actually have to, work in recovery to stay recovered and help people. You can go in these different avenues and still be a person of help. So Larry Clark, love him. He called me every day. It took some convincing because, when you go through this process, you lose, you lose confidence, your self-esteem is low and you feel like, if I've thrown so much away, how can I get it back? And he called me every day about this apprenticeship and, this is what you need to do. Make sure you take the test, make sure you study. And I did that, and I was accepted into the apprenticeship around, I guess, my second year while I was working in the office, and still continued to help and facilitate class as the supervisor. So once I received that apprenticeship, I started my first job as an electrician's apprentice while I was living at the Women's Healing Place. I actually called the bus, the TART, to my first job on the construction site downtown Louisville, an 8-story building. It's it's a miracle, as we say. It's amazing to think of the opportunities and the transformation, within this process. I was able to, during that time, I completed my 5-year apprenticeship. I now not only hold a journeyman's license, but I also a journeyman's ticket, but I also have my master electrical license with the state of Kentucky. As I was going through the paperwork with Frankfurt 5 years, because it's a 5-year apprenticeship, I talked to the ladies at Frankfurt about my license, and they had told me that I was the first African-American woman with a master's electrical license in the state of Kentucky. So I was like, wow, that's amazing. But I do know that that's a male-dominated field. It's a male-dominated field. I know that there's other women, but to actually have her actually tell me that it gave me some pride because I worked hard. And when I think about where I was, at that time, 6 years ago, to gain those accomplishments as we move on and to stay recovered and continue to help others. It's just a blessing. Today, at 10 years, today, I'm actually a supervisor at Ford Motor Company, and I supervise skilled trade. So today I have about 10, 20 times 4, 80, 80 electricians, pipe fitters, tool makers that I manage and supervise in the maintenance department at Ford. And like I said, full circle, 10 years ago, would I ever thought I would be in this place and still helping others, still able to go back to the women. I still facilitate with my home group. I still sponsor women, still dropping off coffee, creamer, cups, sugar every week. I don't get to go to as many meetings, but I've always been a frontline type person. And when I say frontline, I like what they call off the streets. I like them fresh in, I like them. I like the rough, rugged, I don't know if I can do it, you can't tell me anything personality, because somehow to win their confidence at that point, that's just what moves me, because to see them at that point and see the light that comes on, that's how I know that this thing works. And I keep giving it away. They said if you don't give it away, well, you have to give it away to keep it, and that's sobriety. So 360, that's where I am. That's where I'm at today.
That's absolutely incredible. And just like you were talking about, I know you guys are helping people on an individual level, but even being here today and telling your story and using your voices is helping so many people, especially right now as we're trying to make these changes and people's stigmas are starting to change. Seeing people like you all and the careers that you have, it's so incredible and so inspiring. And to your point about getting a career and your very impressive career, I definitely want to talk about getting into the workforce, because I think a lot of people feel like they don't have many options when they're coming out of recovery too, and they're very scared. So I want to get to that eventually. I'm going to turn it over to Kungo now to talk about his experiences, and then we'll go to Chauncy.
Yes, my name is Kungo Jaguna, and I'm an alcoholic and I'm an addict. And I say that because, one, to remind myself and to be open. I'm someone who doesn't believe there should be a stigma with people in recovery. To move things forward, I think we have to be open about it. As I said, I think before we went live, I will have 4 years this Saturday. My sobriety date is 9/26/16. I'm not someone who thought I would say I'm an addict, ever stand up in a room and say, I put a needle in my arm. I was born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky, 2 parents who worked, grew up in white, middle-class suburbia. Went to Klondike Elementary School, Myers Middle, and DuPont Manual High School. And if you're from Louisville, you know that DuPont's one of the quote-unquote best high schools. I got A's and B's, got a scholarship to the University of Kentucky. Was, not someone you quote-unquote think would get into these things. My dad was a minister. So, but I guess what they say about ministers' kids. But for me, I had my first drink when I was 13 years old, 3 shots of Jim Beam, and I stepped over that invisible line immediately. I loved alcohol. I loved the way it made me feel. And even though I ended up in the backyard of my friend's house vomiting, I continued to drink, right? A normal person would go, that's a horrible situation. I don't ever want to do that again. And I was right out the next weekend. And I continued to drink. And one of the reasons I drank was just like for any other reason. It was fun, right? And I didn't have any negative consequences to that for the most part, for most of my life through, middle school or high school. I went to college, like I said, on a scholarship, no real negative consequences. You party, went to UK, there was a couple Final Fours, we had fun, no real consequences to that. The first one did occur in college. I was a resident advisor. Me and a friend got drunk. We got into a little bit of trouble on campus. I had to go see the dean, and I got kicked off campus. But I kept my scholarship, right? So why stop drinking? Why stop drinking? Applied to law school, got into law school. Had my first other real consequences for drinking because I got a DUI my first year of law school. I hid that because I didn't want anyone to know. Only a few people knew that. But I stayed on scholarship, kept going to law school. I was heavily involved in law school, was the president of the Student Bar Association and all that good stuff. No negative consequences. Graduate law school, become a county attorney, worked for the assistant Jefferson County Attorney's Office here in Louisville as a civil lawyer and as a prosecutor. So I prosecuted people for low-level drug offenses, spent half my time being a prosecutor, and learned the power of the state. And it was when I was a prosecutor, though, my life became, it started to spiral down after I graduated and some things happened. And that's where I guess I started really having the consequences. I had a couple of DUIs. I had a boss who was understanding, tried to let me go to treatment. I did kind of that a little bit, you know, I really didn't want to admit I had a problem. And then I got in trouble again. I got indicted. I was a prosecutor who got indicted. I was on the news. I was in the paper. And that was embarrassing for me, my family. But I'll tell you, even then, I didn't want to be an alcoholic. My brother was one. He had been out in the madness, and I wasn't my brother because he was a needle junkie, and I wasn't me. I was just drinking. But as life went on, guess what? I found the needle. I did. And my life continued to spiral out of control, got suspended from the bar, just complete spiral out of control, arrest after arrest after arrest. The Kentucky Supreme Court did order me to go to a program. I went to a 30-day one. I faked my way through that thing. Literally the minute I walked out the door, I had a drink. And so things just got worse and worse, and just eventually they got so bad that I found myself walking down the street ready to end it. Hooked on meth, hooked on heroin, and I wanted to end it. But something told me to call my brother, who was sober, and he picked me up, and he let me stay on his couch for a week, and then he took me to the healing place. I think we're all healing place alumni here. Said something, there you go. And the healing place saved my life. That's where I got to meet Chauncy. We did this thing together, and we've got 4 years, and crazy thing is God does the things that he does for those of us in recovery. Was there for about 9 months, ran into someone who I practiced law with before, got a job almost immediately as I got out. That's actually the law office that I still work at. I had an employer who knows my history, has been supportive of me through the whole time. And I worked to get my law license back, and just 2-3 months ago, I was reinstated at the bar, and I now am an attorney again. And that's just not possible without recovery, having treatment, and it's not possible without having employers who are willing to give people like me a second chance. And I love them for that. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell. Thank you.
Wow, that's incredible, and congratulations on your job and being reinstated, and again on 4 years. You and Chauncy both have anniversaries coming up in October, so congratulations to all of you, but especially on the upcoming anniversaries. So Chauncy, I'm going to turn it over to you. You're already cracking me up. You're smiling all the time. I can't wait to hear from you.
I'll tell you what, it was a large number of years where there was nothing to smile about. So I enjoy every opportunity I get to smile. Just rehearing the stories, you know, Nicole, we were discussing before this, I remember being inspired by her story, being a newcomer, and then actually going through this whole process with Congo. Me and Congo didn't even like each other when we first met each other. He was the first one to admit it. It's like, I didn't like you, right? Yeah, I wasn't really fond of you either. But and now we're best friends. But so my story, I'll try to keep it as general as possible. In 2015, I believe it was right before Derby, probably the week of Derby, 2015. Um, I found myself on I-75 South, um, leaving Central Ohio, everything that I love, kids, um, people that cared about me. Um, just I felt like that was the only option at that time, because the other option was to end my life. I didn't think that I would have the guts to do it by way of a weapon, a gun or something. So I knew I was going to do something even more reckless than the behaviors that I was already engaged in. And I rode about 80, 90 miles on I-75. It was a 2-day trip. I did have a break in between. Some people I had met in recovery from a previous attempt to get clean and sober. And my sobriety date is October 13, 2016, by the way. I'm a person in long-term recovery. But it was the only option that I could come up with. I was like, I cannot do this in Ohio. I know too many people. I can't seem to get it. I had tried it once in 2007, almost got a year. And what it came down to is I always relied upon an outside remedy. And what I mean by that, I was trying to fix an inside job with an outside solution. I had yearned to be a family man. What I rode with on that bike ride, for those 80, 90 miles, was not only a little Kroger bag with some biking shorts and a wife beater in it. That's literally all I own. But I had a big bag of resentments. I resented that I came from a single parent home. I resented that my mom suffered from substance abuse since 1988. I resented the fact that I never had a dad, live in a household, and I was made to be the man of the house of me and my 2 younger brothers. I was resentful at the military for causing my problems and me ending my Navy career early. I resented my family for not taking the reins when I was going through the foster care system. I resented, just all of my bad experience for just being who I am, living in America. I resented the fact, that I never fit in. I was always a new kid, that my mom moved me from state to state, city to city, school to school, been in 5 schools and like 13 other schools before high school. I resented the fact that I always had to go overboard to try to fit in. And in 1995, when I discovered alcohol, it just made all of that stuff easier, more able to deal with. I didn't know back then I was maladjusted to life. I didn't know that I was unable to handle the cards that I have been dealt with in life. This alcohol thing made everything easier. I felt like I fit in instantly. I felt like I was funnier. I felt like I looked better. I felt like I dealt with my situation at home, with my mom. It made it just a little bit easier, when foster care provided a household where I could just sit and focus on graduating high school, which I did. I did on time. I was able to get the credits that I needed because I was severely behind going through that process. And I graduated in 1998 with this thought in my head: I'm gonna do it better than mom. I'm gonna do it better than dad. I just need to get these adults that's ruining my life. I need to just get away from them. I'm gonna go to the military. I'm gonna create this my own life. I'm gonna have some kids and I'm gonna raise them right. And what happened was the drinking never stopped. From 1995, when I was 15 on, it progressed. Now, I was reaping no consequences from this. I just knew it felt good. It felt real good, and I hadn't crossed over that line yet. So when I went into the United States Navy in 1998, 3 weeks after graduation, I started drinking heavier. And as soon as I started having problems, no fault of my own, but the military is made of humans and humans make mistakes. But my way of dealing with that was to drink more. You know, I thought I was reaching out for help with these problems, and maybe I didn't reach out far enough, but I knew when I didn't get the answers that I wanted, you know, I drink more. So ultimately, I ended my own Navy career way earlier. I should have retired in 2018 as a 20-year veteran. That did not happen. And when I got back home, I almost immediately. So I got married right after boot camp to my high school sweetheart. We have 2 beautiful kids together. But my marriage tanked almost immediately. I got around some guys that I could relate to, you know, that came from either single parent homes or foster care or adopted. And we just partied, you know. So I think in that first year, when I exited the military, I tried every drug demand. And it just made my drinking experience even better, you know. And I just, you know, I took off full throttle, you know, and I think everybody started to see it after the first year. I kept getting these ominous warnings like, you know, normal people don't get 2 DUIs in one night on the same road by the same cop. I'll explain offline how that happened later. You know, and it seemed like as soon as that happened, it was just constant. You know, when I finally tried the drug of choice, you know, the drug that I was like, oh wow, I gotta have that in my pocket every day. I gotta learn how to have this on me at all times. You know, and you know, you're looking at a guy. I had no aspirations of being a criminal. You know, even through everything I went through growing up, you know, like you know, I still did decent in school, and I just wanted a good life, you know, just like I think everybody wants. I wanted to raise my kids right and just do the right thing. I had no aspirations on being a drug dealer, on doing drugs, on ruining people's lives, having kids, not being there as their father. You know, I had kids to be there for them, you know, and that goes to those outside solutions. I kept thinking, oh, I just need to start another family. Like I'll do it right this time. You know, the reason I have the amount of kids that I do is because I kept trying to start a new family. Like I never gave up on the dream that I can have a traditional family, you know, and just sprinkle drugs and alcohol all over those ambitions, you know, coupled with, you know, getting back on my feet constantly, always, you know, start my job or potential career over. I thought a trade school would save me. Went in the HVAC I lasted 11 weeks. You know, I was always good. I've always been good at surviving. That's something that my mother gave me. And she did give me permission to use her in this story. But she always instilled survival techniques. So I've always been good at getting a job. It's keeping the job. And anytime I've ever lost a job, it was directly related to drugs and alcohol, and just not being able to get there, either because I'm on a mission or I haven't got up yet from my last mission, you know, or incarceration. You know, there's a whole lot of jail time in there and one prison stint, you know, a short-lived prison stint. But, you know, when I got to that healing place, it was exactly what I needed. You know, it was exactly what I needed. You know, when I first got to Louisville, so, you know, I got there 2015, my sobriety date isn't until 2016. That first year, I concentrated on trying to build something with my dad. My dad is, you know, he lives in Louisville, and that was supposed to just be a spot that I stopped and got some money for the rest of the trip. I was on my way to Nashville to be with my younger brothers, but they told me, no, you're gonna stay right here. And I didn't really have the father-son experience that I had always dreamed of. And, I continued to drink when I first got to Louisville. And eventually I got right back into the drug scene. My dad and girlfriend could not have that in their house. So ultimately I bounced around. A couple of yets happened, and some of our stories, there's the yets, oh, well, I haven't did that yet, being out in the madness. So a yet or two happened, and I was like, you know what? I did not come all the way down here to Kentucky to do the same exact things I was doing in Ohio that I ran away from, on a bicycle. I got to do something about this. And I started out in a program for veterans called Interlink in Louisville. It's no longer there anymore, but they definitely set the launch pad for me. I did end up relapsing twice. And on that second time, the director said, if you go somewhere incomplete for at least 90 days, I'll let you come back. And up till then, I knew nothing about the healing place. And somebody mentioned the healing place. And man, it was everything I needed. It was everything I needed. It reconnected me to 12-step recovery that I had attempted in 2007. And I told myself, you know what? I've been gambling on my life for over 21 years. I've been gambling with my life and crapping out severely. I said, I'm going to take this last little bit of hope, because I was ready to accept the fact that, this is just who I am now. I come from a long line of it. Like, maybe this is just my destiny, but I kept remembering all the people, because I've had some good people in my journey. And throughout that journey, I've had people say, Chauncy, man, you're so smart, man. Like, you're a good person. Like, you're lost, just, you need to get some help, and it was just all those comments over the years. And this, and what really helped was, I did not have, like I said, I didn't have my kids to not be there. And I took that little bit of hope that I could still be a dad, that I could still be a normal citizen, that I could say that I was a veteran and have pride behind that, and I took all that little bit of hope and I said, you know what, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna roll the dice on something that I hear that works for other people. I had never worked all 12 steps. Okay, I'm gonna do that. I had never opened all the way up. Okay, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do this just like they say it. I'm gonna give it a year. And for a whole year, I was a parakeet. Whatever they suggested, hey, Chauncy, can you do that? Yep. I don't know why you're telling me to do that certain thing, but I'm gonna try it. Yep. Hey, Chauncy, can you do this? Yeah, sure. Hey, we suggest that you do it this way. Fine. Yeah, I can do that. And what I noticed is that all of these suggestions started working out in my favor. All of them, man, all of them. And, when I got there, I was a fugitive. I was a fugitive on felony paper from Columbus, Ohio. And I kept wanting to stop my process in the healing place and go back. I was like, man, I got to man up and go take care of this. And they said, man, just hold on. Let us help you after you get done with this. There's no coincidence that you are here for a reason to do this inside job. And my best friend down there, my best friend who practices law, Mr. Congo, he helped me get back in touch with my public defender from back in Columbus. And 4 months later, mind you, I still had 7 months on the shelf prison time. Should have gotten an escape charge, absconding probably, and so a whole nother slew of fines. But with his help, my dedication to pay my restitution and all my fines off, I went into the office and I took that little stipend check and I put about as much as I could, minus food money, into my legal fees and restitution, got back on track with child support. And by the time we took care of this, I had a stack of papers that included my completion letter from the healing place and alumni status, that I was facilitating classes even after graduating, so to speak, peer support specialist certification. And it took him four months to reply back to me. And Congo delivered me the news, and he said, the judge, the prosecutor, and the lawyer told me to tell you you are free. You do not have to come to court. You have no new charges, and that you can come back home whenever you want. That's one reason why I stay in the position to try to offer just one person some kind of hope. When you do good things, it can just open the doors for you that you don't even know are there to open. I had no idea. I could not come up with a reason why staying at a homeless shelter could help me with these outside problems. Like, I couldn't see it then, so what my life looks like today, I got into peer support right out of the healing place, probably about 2 months after I was done. Waited some tables and I bartended. That was my bread and butter for a lot of years. Cleaned my credit up too. But I'm still in peer support today. I started off in Centerstone in downtown Louisville. I was the first integrated care peer support for Centerstone. Created some nice groups there. And in the spirit of rebuilding my family and reconnecting with my kids, I moved back to Ohio, not too far from Louisville, though. I live here in Cincinnati. I work in Newport, Kentucky, and I'm a reentry peer. And that could be defined in many ways, whether it's reentry coming out from incarceration or literally just getting back into society, period. And that's what I do today.
That is incredible. And I have to tell you guys, we're already getting such good feedback in the chat, and I'm getting a bunch of messages. And I have to tell you guys too, your stories are also incredible. This is typically the time when I'd say, okay, everybody, closing comments. That is how incredible your stories have been. So everybody, we typically would only go an hour. We're gonna go until 4:15. I'm making an executive decision as long as everybody on this call is good to go until then. If anybody who's watching this has to hop off, just a reminder, we are recording this. This will be up either tomorrow morning or at the end of the day today. So just letting you guys know. So because we're gonna go over a little bit, but we're kind of short on time, I'm gonna go with questions kind of to each of you. I'm gonna point certain questions to each of you, if that's okay with you guys. So I'm gonna start with Nicole, and I wanna ask you about wraparound services. Obviously, you were talking about catching the bus to your first job afterwards and things like that. Transportation is such a critical aspect in this, and things that go along with treatment and recovery that we often don't think about, especially people who aren't in recovery or trying to go through treatment. We don't think about what else people need because they don't have much when they enter. So what are some of the inequities that exist within wraparound services, and how can we address what's necessary to move forward and to help as many people as possible? You're muted, Nicole.
Okay, wraparound services. Some of those disparities that I see are not only education, finance, and family support. In the situation, and I say, with me, I actually, and it was helped me so much because I did have that family support. You see, I did have that education, and I was able to call family members for bus tokens when the healing place didn't have the donation. My sister lived 5 minutes away, and every now and then she could come and take us to meetings. So I want to say any of those services, as far as transitioning into trying to find a job, trying to get your GED, because when we talk about racial inequity, and African Americans we are a large percent when we come in from addiction. You know, there's a lot of us who come from poverty, and some of us come from generational addiction, you know, because when my first, and I want to just say this, my first treatment center was in '88. See, there was an epidemic before the heroin epidemic. There was a crack epidemic, you know. So you get people my age whose mothers, parents were suffering, who didn't get rehabilitation. They didn't get help. So generation after generation. So although that education, that finance, that family support is not there. So we want to look, as far as cultural awareness, we want to look at the systemic issues as well, because with the healing place they talk about, well, the healing place, they say that we're a social model. So if we're a social model and a peer support, how can we not replicate what's going on into society? What's going on in society, you know, is replicated within, you know, recovery. So that's why we're having this topic, right? Because we want to promote cultural diversity, because within these organizations, we have to know that, okay, this particular person, whether they may be Asian or Latino, we have different values, family values, and they're raised different. So they may not be able to go down this avenue. So yes, like I said, finance, transportation, education, you know, literacy programs. I had a few of them written down. Family support, advocacy in those areas are key. Yes.
Perfect. I'm going to go to Tony next and ask, and I'm going to, at this one, anybody who has had significant dealings with the criminal justice system can weigh in on this as well. Tony, I think that you said you had kind of been in and out of the system a couple times there, especially early on. We know that in our criminal justice system, we have a problem already with people getting arrested for low-level offenses, and that's why they're behind bars, as well as people of color facing even bigger issues within the system. So how should we go about addressing those issues, especially when it comes to substance use disorder, in your opinion?
I'm going to have to, and I hope the lawyer will back me up on this one. I think we really have to take a look at the 13th Amendment. That set up a system that ending slavery, but that people of color, African Americans, and former slaves could be arrested and disparaged for the slightest offense. And talking about the criminal justice system, and I think it was covered in the emails that were going back, but it starts. I mean, there's just we're living in two different countries. The charges that Blacks, people of color get versus the weight of the charge at the street level is just for Black men and women and people of color it's just heavier. I hope I don't get in trouble, but I'll just simply say that as a program director for two different centers and having had a contract with Department of Corrections, part of that process to receive residents was that we looked at, and Nicole, I think what you were looking for before was a PSI, a pre-sentence investigation.
It was.
And looking at the difference in the weight of the charges, I'll just say that there were other folks who had chance after chance after chance after chance after chance, versus, again, to Nicole's experience, 25 years. There are other folks that wouldn't have gotten such a heavy sentence for the same action. And but and that's stuff that, you know, personally, that's not for us to fix. I mean, we can speak to it. This is how it affects us. That's the weight of the system, and keep on speaking to that. That you know, my personal involvement, God was looking out for me.
Yes.
I mean, it's just a miracle that I wasn't, you know, whether early on when my substance use disorder began to take off when I was still living in Chicago. Part of that may have had to do that my father was a police officer in Evanston. My grandfather was a police officer in Evanston. My grandfather he was the first Black detective on the Evanston police force, and this is starting in the late 20s. So he was, you know, an officer through Prohibition. And my dad, you know, well, actually, my father, when he passed away in October of 2010, he was 33 years sober. So I had the opportunity to grow up within that recovery capital, the fellowship, and you know, there are. I'm not saying, you know, we were talking about wraparound services before. There are plenty of wraparound services within the fellowship for those of us who are willing to reach out, because I mean, they're there for us. But that's, you know, that's not to say that a little extra, you know, as everyone has spoken to, the education, that a little better understanding and assistance with how to navigate the legal system, how to build the relationships back with children and families, and how to be a good employer. I know I'm bouncing around a little bit here, but it's just I'm just hoping for a shift in perception within society that, you know, that just because we're wrapped in a brown skin doesn't automatically mean that I am a criminal, or that I'm a deadbeat dad, or that I come from this, whatever the society has categorized what they believe a Black male is, or a Black woman is.
Perfect. I think you've made a ton of good points. And again, this timing thing is killing me. You guys, we may have to have like a second panel with these four Kentuckians, because there's so much to discuss. These are such important topics. I hope that they'll indulge me in making sure that they stay involved, and we can continue to have these conversations with them, even if it is a second panel or interviews or things like that. So I'm going to move to Congo now and ask him about, you said how important it was for your employer to give you a second chance, and for employers to, you know, look at people in recovery and be willing to give that second chance. I think we're seeing more and more of that through our initiative. We have people who are fair chance employers. We're giving people, you know, sample policies about things that deal with addiction if someone has a relapse and if someone needs to go to treatment and things like that. So as someone in recovery, what would you want to say to employers who would be on this call today, or who end up listening to this, about how to handle these situations and how to improve their work environments for people of color and people in recovery?
I think employers have to know that the recovery, or the fact that we were addicts, is just one part of us. You have to be willing to look past that and give people a chance. If you want people to stay in recovery and not go back to using drugs or committing crimes, they have to have some hope, and they've got to be able to provide for themselves. And we can't do that if you won't employ us. So you have to give us a chance to show that we've changed. I would also like to just comment on the criminal justice aspect of the question too. Obviously, I'm involved with the ACLU of Kentucky, and smart justice and justice reform is big on our thing. And I think we just have to reimagine the criminal justice system. The war on drugs has been has hit hard on Black and brown communities. We know these things. And what we have criminalized is a disorder. I mean, that's what we're here to talk about, is substance abuse disorder. And you can't treat that by throwing people in jail or in prisons. And what we know is that this war on drugs has hit the African-American community harder than anyone else. I think we make 8 to 9% of the population, but yet we're about 20, 21% of the jail and the prison population. That doesn't make any sense. Why is that? And I think we all know, systematic racism. The ACLU did a study and a report that showed, I think, that African Americans here in Kentucky are 10 times more likely than their white counterparts to be arrested for marijuana, despite the fact that the usage rate of marijuana is the same. So why is that? It's over-policing in Black and brown communities. We just know these things. We're not going to solve a substance use disorder by arresting our way out of it. I mean, I committed crimes when I was using. I went to treatment. Find out Congo hasn't committed a crime since then, you know, and I have a job and I'm employed. These are common sense solutions that we need to do in Kentucky. From my perspective, that makes sense. That's easy. But then obviously we run into roadblocks. People say public safety, but it is public safety. I got sober and I stopped committing crimes. I don't know, to me, that makes a whole lot of sense. So, and in terms of just making, I think, the employment open to people of all nationalities, I just got to be open to it. You know, you need to go out and recruit in African-American communities, let them know that you're hiring people of all types, and, you know, and just get involved in the community, get out there and invite them in.
Perfect. And I'm going to move to Chauncy. I saw your mom is on here. She's in the chat talking about how she's on here.
She's my biggest fan. And just so you guys know, me and my mom have an excellent relationship now. I just, you know, I'd never stop loving her. We just love each other to death. And she's my biggest cheerleader since I've been born, as I am her.
That's incredible. I'm so glad she's with us today. I have a question for you about disparities in terms of seeking treatment. You know, I know, especially if people are in the criminal justice system and they want to go to treatment, there's problems there, but also I want to know about disparities that you've seen in your work or personally in terms of seeking treatment and getting treatment. I remember Tony talking about how he didn't have insurance, and so he called the Healing Place. It seems like you guys have all had a wonderful experience with the Healing Place, but some people don't know where to reach out. And even if they do know where to reach out, it seems like there are some huge barriers in place. So Chauncy, if you want to talk about that and how we can fix some of those problems.
Yeah, so I mean, just the sheer fact, if I think back to when I first started going to treatment in 2004, when I think back now, just the visual, thinking back of the ratio of Black to white or just people of color to white, you know, it was, I mean, I could probably count on my hand, you know, of how many people of color there were in treatment, you know, and I can't just, I mean, that tells the whole story to me right there, even in Louisville, you know, which is a urban city, you know, right? And it's right in the heart of West Louisville. You know, we are still the minority. And that, you know, I mean, there is a lot, I've run across a whole lot of treatment in lieu, you know, where they're given the option to complete a treatment facility versus getting convicted and doing their time for the crime that they've been charged with. You know, just looking at the numbers, of people of color that are in treatment, and then Congo just threw you the statistic, you know, of the prison population. So that says it. I mean, that says it right there. You know, I was given a chance. I was given the chance to go to a place the first time with my first felony. In Ohio, you know, and there just wasn't, you know, You know, I'm so grateful for that chance, by the way. But there was no wraparound, you know, going back to that wraparound, you know, it was a great thing, you know, and there's halfway houses, you know, but just for people of color and for people living under the poverty line, there's just not a lot of resources. You know, there's just not a lot of resources. You know, a halfway house is just a place to stay. You know, it says, okay, well, we're going to have you stay over here, stay clean and sober, get you a job and pay your rent and stay, you know, just stay out of trouble. I tried that. It didn't work. It just didn't work. You know, you know, I help a lot of people now today get into different services, sober living, helping provide, you know, providing a conduit to getting financial assistance with sober living. And you know what? It's only connected to opiate use disorder. You know, and back to what Nicole was saying. You know, and even to go a little further, there's always been a heroin epidemic. Well, see, back in the 60s and the 70s, it was just a New York City problem, a Detroit problem, a Los Angeles problem, a Houston problem. You know, it wasn't in the heart of America, yet it hadn't really reached the suburbs yet. You know, where were the follow-up calls where the cops and the caseworkers came back to visit people strung out then? Or fast forward, you know, to the 80s, the 80s and 90s, where was the follow-up care to go see how the young brother, young sister was doing that was strung out on crack and had to go to jail for a while? You know, where's the assistance today? Where's the assistance for sober living for those people? You shouldn't have to lie about an opiate addiction to get help getting into sober living if you want to start your life over. There's something really wrong with that. Nothing against the programs that help people with opiates. That's awesome. That's awesome. You know, why can't it be awesome for the person that's just strung out on crack? You know, or meth, you know? There needs to be an across the board bleeding heart for people struggling with this thing. You know, there's this thing called with substance abuse has many faces and many looks, and we all need help. Anybody from alcohol to pain pills to heroin to meth and all across the board. You know, what makes one demographic more important and more deserving of help than the other? This isn't the America that I want. This isn't the America that I helped fight for with my commitment to the military for the time that I was in there. This is just not my American dream that I've dreamed of. You know, why can't we be there for all Americans that want to be a part of the same fabric that everybody else does? It doesn't make sense.
I think that's an incredible point. I think this has been such an incredible conversation. I can't get over it. And we're got about 2 minutes, but we can go over just keep pushing the time back. But I want to give each of you a chance to give just a quick closing statement. Anything we have not covered here today that we wanted to, anything you want the people to know, either people who are employers, people who want to get involved in making change, or people who are struggling themselves. What do you want your final comments to be to them? I'm going to start with Chauncy.
My final comment is, if you want help, there is help out there. You know, take that same zeal, that courage, you know, that faith and hope that we use out there in the madness, and we do have those principles out there. Take those principles and do a 180 with it, and aim it towards get some help. You know, I promise you, if you keep reaching out, you will find the help, and there are people like us just waiting to help you, and it won't cost you a dime. That's all I got.
Perfect. And I'm definitely going to follow Chauncy's mom's advice and webinars too. These are incredible conversations, and we will definitely be holding more of them. Tony, what about your final comments?
I would just, for those that may not be in recovery, and I will just speak for myself, there is something that drugs and alcohol do for those of us with a substance abuse disorder that it doesn't do for the normal person. I didn't mention it before, but my sophomore year in high school, I was probably 125 pounds soaking wet, had a big old afro. My legs were longer than my torso. I looked like a black Q-tip or Urkel prototype. And in my neighborhood, well, I know this is different for everyone, but you know, I live with my father and my parents were divorced. And whenever that topic came up, the question always came, what is wrong with you or what is wrong with your mother that you don't live with your mom? And so when I discovered Stroh's beer, I was no longer the black Q-tip or the Urkel prototype. It filled me up inside. Everyone has spoken to it. I was no longer different. I looked better, could dance better. I don't know whether or not that stuff was true or not, but that's what was going on up here at the time. And so, and it produced a mental obsession that I have got to stay like this. I have got to continue to feel this way. And I just for those that may not get, it's not a moral failing, it's not a lack of character. It is just something that drugs and alcohol, for someone who has a substance use disorder, it does something for them that it just does not do for the normal person. And so, and just, you know, I'm gonna shut up right there, and I'm just gonna say it's a privilege to share this screen with all you guys and Jackie and our friend Amanda. Man, I just thank you for this opportunity to participate, y'all. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tony. It has been such an honor to talk to all of you. And again, I'm bringing these people back, you guys. I have to have more of these conversations. So I'm going to toss it over to Nicole for her closing comments now.
Okay, closing comment. What I want to say is cultural awareness. Just like in corporations, Ford Motor Company, Toyota, they do diversity training for all their directors, executives in every position, even employees. If you're working on the line in Ford, one of your classes is diversity training. I think that with the treatment centers and recovery, as many that are being created and popping up, I think that's one of the things that they need to make sure that is instilled in their employees. And also, like Chauncy said, the numbers, they don't lie. We have this small percentage in treatment centers, but statistics say there's a larger percentage of us that are incarcerated and on drugs. Why does that not show in treatment? Why, even in the West End at the Healing Place, where 20% or less, and I may be, I believe it's less in minorities within the Healing Place. So with that being said, with equity training, cultural awareness, so they can actually reach out and, help everybody equally. I'll keep it simple. Thank you for this platform. I would love to continue this conversation because I got a lot of things in my head and I'm trying to get it off. But thank you. This has been an amazing opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I'm the same way. I've got so many questions already. I keep writing while you guys are talking because I've already got stuff I want to talk to you guys about next time. And again, I just want to remind everyone to sign up for the Kentucky Comeback Network because you'll get notified of all of these discussions we're going to have, of all the things that we're working on, and of all the great work that's going on with a lot of these people as well. And so finally, I appreciate everybody. We've still got a lot of people hanging on with us, so I'm impressed by how many people have stayed on. So I am going to toss it over to Congo for his final remarks.
My message is to the policymakers and to employers. I am not an enemy combatant. Stop treating me like a prisoner of war. What I need is treatment and help in your compassion. And those are the things that we need to do to come back into Kentucky and to get back on the right track. We talk about in this country about rehabilitation and about forgiveness and redemption. Those are action words. And we do that by giving me treatment, getting people sober, and then when we get out, employing us, renting to us, allowing us to come back into society and prove that we can be productive members of society. And every single one of us on this call proves that.
All right. Thank you guys so much. It's such an honor to get to talk to all of you today. Can't wait for our next discussion. I'm already planning it in my head, so I will be talking with the 4 of these people to get on our schedules for our next discussion, because I do think we still have a lot of ground to cover. These are such important topics. I mean, addiction and recovery and criminal justice are such important topics, but especially the disparities that we're still facing at all times. This is the time to be discussing them even more than ever, because I think that people are finally ready to take some action, especially lawmakers. And so I think that you guys are critical voices in that discussion, and I cannot wait to continue talking with you all about this. So again, thank you so much to everyone who joined us on our webinar today and to our panelists. Sign up for the Kentucky Comeback Network, and we will see you guys next time. Thank you all so much.
Bye.